Remodelers and custom builders, welcome back to the growth framework. So we went through the high-level pillars: attract, convert, nurture, close, and measure. And now we are zoomed in on attract. In the last video, we covered the center of the marketing bullseye, which is the foundation, which is your website. And now we are working on the first ring, which is owned traffic. Now this is a really powerful channel because you don't have to pay for all of the clicks as you continue to own more and more digital real estate. And that's one of the reasons we call it owned traffic, is because we're going to talk a lot about content, SEO, AI visibility. We're going to talk about your email list, but these are channels where you start to take up more digital real estate, and you don't have to pay for individual clicks like you do in the next ring, which we'll get to in the next video, which is all about renting traffic. And so if you think about, physical real estate, the game of Monopoly, it's like, hey, acquire more properties, acquire more real estate, because then you actually start getting paid for owning that. And when you own positions on Google, you own the answer in AI, you own an email list that is property of your company, you get that traffic and you're not having to pay for it over and over again. So it's extremely powerful. And so today we're going to talk a little bit more about the SEO and AI components that we touched on in the last video when we talked about your website. And so just as a quick refresher, we've got SEO and we've got our technical component. We've got our keyword targeting. We have our local SEO, and then we have schema. Now today we're going to highlight mostly keyword targeting, but then I also just want to give a quick refresher on our AI visibility as well. And so here we talked about EEAT. This is experience, expertise, authority, and trust. As we think about trying to own more space on Google, on Yahoo, on Bing, or on ChatGPT, Perplexity, all of these platforms here, the big theme is that we're going to be educating our prospects, our audience. And so we're highlighting this one here. We're mostly going to be talking about this component of SEO, and then we're talking about these as well. So you have your website as the foundation. You've got that center piece in the marketing bullseye. But now we need to continue to attract and drive more traffic to that. And the core premise of all of this is education marketing. And this is not new. This has been around for decades. There's actually an old story that I like to reference, and I don't know the date, but it was it may have been 100 years ago at this point. It was the early, I believe, 1900s, but it was the John Deere, like the tractor company, and they created a magazine at the time, and it was all about farming best practices. And it was a free magazine, and they sent it out, and all of these farmers were subscribed to it. And they're reading about all of these great farming best practices. Well, lo and behold, if you want to implement a lot of these, you're going to need some machinery at some point to operate on your farm. And so that was actually one of the ways that they marketed and built such a strong brand, was that they created all of this helpful information. And then when people were like, well, I need a tractor, or I need this other piece of equipment, it was a natural selection to go with them. And so that concept is not a new concept, but with the rise of Google over the past 20-ish years, content, kind of that style of marketing, education marketing, content marketing, really there was a huge boom. And it was because that was a way that you could basically get found by people searching. They're searching for information. You want to become the supplier of that information at no cost to them. And Google is basically connecting the dots. Same with AI, they're basically connecting the dots. And so that's why we educate. That's why you write blogs. That's why you build out content on your website. That's why you start a podcast. That's why you create social posts. That's why you have a YouTube channel. Like all of those things are so that you can educate with the end goal of attracting those right fit clients that ultimately become customers and move forward with you. So, with that being said, we want to have kind of a methodology and a system for going about creating this content. So we don't want to just randomly start talking about trends and inspiration posts and writing these generic blogs. That is a model that has typically not worked very well. In the past, it worked well to maybe get a whole bunch of traffic, but then the traffic was not very qualified. And so you'd get a lot of traffic on, 25 design trends to think about in 2026. And it's like, cool, a lot of people found that blog interesting, but they weren't actually looking to hire you or actually execute on a project. They just came to the site and then they left. So we want to focus on what we call high intent strategies. And so what that looks like is we have this concept of, our search intent matters more than search volume. And so that example we just used, you might have something like, so something with high search intent would be something like kitchen remodel cost in Denver. And if you compare that to something that maybe has a lot of search volume, that might be something like kitchen design trends 2026. And so if you're doing your keyword research and you're looking through, Google's keyword planner, you're using some SEO tools like Ahrefs or anything like that, you might come across this term. And this term might get, it might get, 1,000 searches every single month. People are searching for that. Whereas this one might get 70. So on the surface, you're just going, hey, this one gets way more traffic. I should just target this. But this is generic. It's not specific. And it gets the volume. But I'd much rather be ranking number one for this because it's got service plus location. And so even if I don't get all 70 of these, which you won't, and you won't get all 1,000 of these, if you're ranking number one, you'll get a high percentage, but you may get 20, 30, something of those clicks. I would much rather have 20 or 30 clicks on this than even all 1,000 of these, because these people could be anywhere. There's no intent behind this search. And so we want to make sure that as we are creating content and going to all of this effort to educate and create the content, whether it's written or it's audio or it's video, and then publish it and get it ranking. There's a lot of work that goes into that. We want to make sure that we're targeting the right things. So we're looking at high intent search terms over things that just get lots of volume. So things that fall into this bucket are going to be, cost, timeline type topics. People that actually want to do a project want to know what it's going to cost. They also want to know how long it's going to take. They want to be educated on the process. And then we want location specific scenarios. And again, that can apply to cost, that can apply to timeline. In certain cities, counties, states, things can take longer, like the permitting process or anything like that. And so we want to be able to talk about these. We can also use, under location specific, we can have, services, project spotlights. You can include trends here, and that can be more specific, although I would still say put that lower on the totem pole because people that are searching for trends, it doesn't automatically signal intent. And then there's something else that's extremely important when we're talking about showing up today. And especially we're seeing some early data on the AI side that freshness matters a lot. And there are posts that are being written and published, and then they're actually getting visible and they're getting shown in AI when they may not be ranking in Google yet. And so we get the question a lot, which is, hey, once I kind of build out my site and I write some blogs, like, am I good? No, typically not. That may, make some progress for a little while. But there are a couple of components. One is, let's say I wrote a blog on cost. And so this could be, how much does it cost to remodel a kitchen in Denver in 2025? And I wrote that a while ago. Well, now it's a new year. And so a good strategy to make sure that all of my content is fresh is I'm going to go back to this post. I'm going to review the content and make sure, hey, I need to update this. This is out of date. Pricing has changed. Material costs have gone up. Labor costs have gone up. So I need to edit the content, and I'm going to edit and update the content. And then I'm going to change the title, and I'm going to change it to 2026. And I'm going to make sure that my publish date is now the current date, and I'm going to hit publish. And so what that does is it makes sure that I'm actually keeping the end customer in mind with education, because 2025, 2024, 2023 content doesn't really help them anymore because it's a new year. And so we want to make sure it's up to date for them. But AI and Google also want fresh, up-to-date, relevant content. So there are two paths to keeping your content fresh. One is this, we call it historical blog optimization, but it's going back and updating old blog content, making sure you're actually updating it. You're not just changing the publish date and the title. You're actually going through the content and making sure it is up to date. So that's one path. And then the other path is writing new content, right? So writing new blog posts, creating new pages on your website. And so as you go about your content creation strategy and your education strategy, you're going to be thinking about a few things. And the first one is you're going to be thinking about the medium. And so that's going to be, is that written? Is that audio? Or is that video? And so many of you will probably be doing a lot of written. And so that's going to be your blogs, your website pages, your project spotlight pages. Audio would be a podcast, and video would be either YouTube or social media content. So you're going to be thinking about, okay, what is the medium for my education? We're going to be thinking about intent, which we talked about here, right? We want to make sure we have high intent from the searcher. So what is that keyword? What is that topic? What are they searching? And based on our best guess, if they search this, do they probably have the intent to move forward with a project? Kitchen Remodel Cost Denver has higher intent than Kitchen Design Trends 2026. Local remodeling company near me, much higher intent than Kitchen Design Trends 2026. So intent matters in terms of our structure. And then we're going to think about our EEAT here. So that's going to be a reference point to how can we demonstrate in this content that we're creating our experience? How can we demonstrate expertise? How can we build authority? How can we build trust? And so just as a refresher to hit some of these points that you want to be able to bake in to your website, your blog content, your videos, anything that you're creating is going to be real projects with, local information and specific information to your area. It's going to be, photos and videos of those projects. We're going to have authors on our blog content that we're creating and we're writing, or on the videos or anything that we're building out. We want to make sure we're having that tag to an author so we can start to build that authority. We've got credentials. So this is going to be things like certifications that either your company has earned, or individuals on your staff or you as the owner that have had to get certain certifications or anything like that. Awards, backlinks, reviews, and a secure website. Now there are more things that fall into this bucket, but this should give you plenty of ammo in terms of building out your expertise, experience, authority, and trust. And all of these, if you're baking them into your content, again, whether that's your website, your service pages, your project spotlights, your blog content, your videos, your podcasts, this will help build authority and show AI platforms and Google that, hey, this content should be prioritized. And these are ways that we can influence our ability to own more and more digital real estate. And so looking back to our marketing bullseye, the idea is that over time, we're trying to build a system where this ring expands and it gets a lot bigger. You think about if you owned one rental property or you owned 10 or 20 or 30, you would own more real estate and you'd have more cash flow coming in. In this case, we own more and more digital real estate, meaning, man, I'm showing up for this term, but now I'm showing up for another one, and now I have dozens of terms that I show up in the top 3, 4. Now I have hundreds of terms that I show up in the top 3, 4. Now when people are doing AI prompts and searches, I'm showing up there. That's what it looks like to own more and more digital real estate, and then traffic flows to you, and then leads convert, and then you sign more business. And so that is why we want to build this ring out as much as we can, because it means we're doing a good job of educating the market, building up our trust and authority in terms of these platforms, and then ultimately getting more people to the website. So we're going to use educational content and content marketing as a way to influence and improve how we show up in these platforms here. And then the other component that we can't forget about is email. You may be thinking, email, this is kind of a random thing sitting over here. We've been talking about ranking here, but what we're really talking about is owned traffic. And so this is traffic that you're not having to pay for every single click. And so again, if you have worked your way up to the top spot for this, and this month 30 people click your website and get to your website, you didn't have to pay $2, $4, $5, $10 a click for every one of those clicks. You just got it because you own that digital real estate. You also own your email list. So this is going to be a combination of past customers, past leads. This could be referral partners, and then any current leads that are coming in. If you have 20 people on your email list, you can use any number of email tools today. Most of them are very low cost, and send an email to all 20 people. And it doesn't really cost you anything. If people click your email, they come back to your website, it doesn't cost you anything. You can also send an email and not link to your website and just try to elicit a response. And so the reason this falls into owned traffic is it is a way that you can go out to the marketplace and reach a set of eyes without it costing you, which again, we'll get to the rented channels in the next ring. And so this, believe it or not, is one of the very last things that I would give up. If you asked me, hey, you've got 100 different marketing channels, this would be one that I would hang on to as long as possible, because 20 names doesn't sound like a lot, but as you stack up over years of working with past customers and you build up past leads that you maybe never connected with, they never move forward, you build out your partner network, and you're generating more and more people onto your email list. This list can turn into hundreds and then thousands. And then if you hit a slow season and you have a few open spots in design or your schedule, you can send out an email to all of these people and say, hey, we have 2 design slots that we're looking to fill for these types of projects. Do you know of anybody? Many times what happens is somebody on the list will say, actually, I've been thinking about a project. I'm glad you reached out. Let's talk. It will generate some immediate activity, or they can connect you to someone else. We had somebody one time, they literally had 20 people on their list, and they said, yeah, it's a pretty small list. And so we recommended that, hey, reach out to them, send this little email. And so they one-to-one just copy pasted the email basically to 20 people. They booked 3 meetings from that list. So even if you don't have a big email list, it's extremely powerful. And if used correctly, then it can be a great way to generate ongoing work or work in very specific seasons that you really need it. And so as we are building up our own digital real estate on Google and AI platforms, we also want to be building up our email list. And then we can be adding value to them almost all the time. And we're going to talk a lot about email when we get to the nurture pillar of the framework. But as just a quick teaser, I guess, this content that we're creating here on cost and timeline and process, we can basically go to our email list and say, hey, we created this really helpful timeline blog post. Go check it out. Now we're adding value to these people over a long period of time, and then as they continue to move through their daily lives and they hit a point in their life where they're like, I'm ready to do a project, they've been hearing from you and getting helpful content, and then we move them right into the sales process. So own traffic is all about building up your digital real estate. We're primarily talking about SEO and AI visibility, and we do that by education. We're going to educate and create helpful content, and we're going to think about that in terms of different mediums, which is going to be written, audio, or video. We want to make sure that we're pulling in high intent people that we think are ready to buy or close to being ready to buy. We're going to apply the experience, expertise, authority, and trust framework here to our content. And then we're not going to forget about email as a part of what we own in terms of our digital real estate. So that is own traffic, the first ring in the marketing bullseye. In the next video, we're going to talk about rented traffic. So it's all about ads and how we can drive more traffic faster, because this process, as you can see, can be pretty time intensive to build this all out. So that has been Attract, Own Traffic, and we'll see you in the next one.